Good afternoon, dear viewers and listeners. My name is Maria Lihus, and I'm very glad to greet you at this fourth meeting of the cycle of interviews and lectures entitled Perspectives of Ukrainian Cinema, which is dedicated to talks and lectures of the prominent Ukrainian artists and scholars that examine and deal with the history, current state, and perspectives of Ukrainian film industry and cinema. This meeting is conducted on the basis of the Laboratory of Cinema and Philosophy Research of the Novo Institute of Philosophy, Novo University Lisbon, and I would like to say that this session is also supported by the Roots Association and its founder, Alexandra Boychenko. I'm very happy to announce our today's guest, Iryna Tsilyk, a prominent Ukrainian filmmaker, writer, who is a member of European Film Academy and Ukrainian PEN International. We were very delighted and glad to watch Iryna's debut documentary film, The Earth is Blue as an Orange, on Friday at Cinema São Jorge. And this film was awarded at Sundance Film Festival in 2020. Moreover, this year, in 2023, Iryna was awarded with the Shevchenko Prize, which is Ukrainian's most prestigious prize for cultural works of contemporary artists and culture agents. So I would like to express my gratitude to Iryna for taking your time and joining our meeting today. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm very glad to see you even through this small window of Zoom, which is not enough. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to come to Lisbon this summer, but I was very glad to know that the screening was fine and the audience, I hope, liked the film. So if you will have questions, I will try to find some answers. I hope I'll have it.
Great. So let's start discussing the film, because this meeting was intended to be a Q&A session after the film. We have very fresh impressions. And the first question I would like to ask you, Iryna, is about your understanding of documentary films in general and filming this documentary in particular. We know that The Earth is Blue as an Orange is dedicated to the life of Ukrainians almost at the front line. And you depict the life of a Ukrainian family of a single mother and her 4 children who have a direct experience of war since 2014, even though now the whole Ukrainian society faced the full war starting from the 24th of February last year, but you created this film in 2017 and 18, trying to demonstrate how this particular family and Ukrainian society in general deal with this direct or indirect experience, traumatizing experience of war. How did you approach to filming the life of traumatized people? How did you try to make the connection and trust to this family? And do you think whether cinema in general and documentary films in particular are significant and maybe helpful in overcoming collective traumas in general?
Oh, Maria, you had so many questions in one, so I'll try to answer step by step. First of all, you asked me what documentary filmmaking is for me, in my understanding. And I should confess that I still don't have all the answers. And this is my way to explore this field, this new territory for me. Because on the one hand, we think that documentary films present life as it is, but on another hand, I believe in author's perspective and the role of the author's view, because a lot depends on who is telling the story. For example, talking about my film, The Earth is Blue and Orange, and this real family, real people, I believe that if different documentary filmmakers would have a possibility to tell their stories about this family, we would have a chance to watch very different films, because this is my choice how to shoot them, which angles, which shots, how am I combining them in the editing process. So it means a huge responsibility also, because when you are shooting real people with their real lives and fears and traumas and etc., etc., it's really scary, because this is not your fiction. This is not the script that you created. These people are real. So you should be very careful when you are telling their story to the rest of the world, because you change their life immediately when you enter their life with your camera. It's like butterflies effect, you know, because these people change. They start to do something especially for the cameras. Sometimes they start to live their lives especially for your film. So that is a long conversation, and I had many special experiences during my shooting process. So maybe I should first tell you how I started to make this project, because at the very beginning, I actually considered to make another film. I was invited as a director to shoot the documentary film about the very cool Ukrainian project, which is called Yellow Bus. That is a project where professional filmmakers arrange cinema camps for children, teenagers who live in the war zone. So first I was invited in one of those camps as a guest, then as a tutor, and then we considered to make a project about these children who live in the frontline zone, but who want to make films. And that was actually very exciting beginning, but then I found myself confused and lost, because I met so many cool children, and I didn't know how to follow all these lines, how to make these group portraits. So I felt kind of lost. And then I had the important turning point when two of the girls, then which I met in those camps, Miroslava and Nastya, they invited me and my crew to visit their hometown, Krasnogorivka, and their family. So we decided to see where they live and what is happening there. And when we came to Krasnogorivka, when we met their mother and siblings and all these cats and the turtle, we immediately fell in love with this family, with this really special atmosphere of their home. And that was a moment when I decided that I probably need to change the whole idea. And I called to my producer. I told her, you know, we spent some money already, but maybe there is still a chance to change the idea of the film, because I really believe that we need to stay with this family. And we stayed with them for 1 year. That was a long process, because me and my team, the cinematographer and also sound engineer, we've been coming many times again and again to Krasnogorivka, and we lived together with our characters. We were observing their life, and at the same time, that was a long process of making the film, because at the very beginning of the journey, you usually don't really know what is your story about? How to tell this story? What is the way of this storytelling? So that was some kind of symbiosis, because at the end of the day, we made it together. I mean, we changed our characters, they changed us. And yeah, the process was challenging, and there are so many aspects about making this film and documentary films in general. But okay, maybe I should focus on something in particular. Did you ask me about how did we cope to work with the trauma? Yes, and does the art help to somehow um, I don't know, to deal with traumas of our characters? That is also one of those questions that I was asking myself, because first of all, my goal was to understand what does it mean to be civilians who live in a very dangerous zone, in the frontline zone, because in that times I started to shoot them in 2017, 18. Donetsk region was at war, but I lived in Kiev, and Kiev was completely peaceful in 2017, 18. So as an artist, as Ukrainian, I asked myself, what does it mean to live in the war zone? And that was actually one of my reasons why I decided to make this film, and why I was so impressed by this family, because they seemed to me so brave and weird at the same time. Because despite all the circumstances of this war reality, they somehow found their way how to live fully. When I first met these people, these children, I was deeply impressed that they still have their own routine, normal life, because they have their school lessons, they have some sports, and they play different music instruments, and they shoot amateur films about themselves. And that was so inspiring, but weird at the same time. And also, when I met them, and when we just started to get know each other, I was impressed by their way of talking about their traumas, because they were always laughing, just laughing, especially when they were talking about the first most traumatic and terrible years of war and their experience. And it took me time to understand that this laughing is probably their way to protect themselves. And then we had a very special moment all together. We were shooting them during the filming process, because this family, the mother and kids, they decided to make a short film that was a schoolwork, something like that, for the eldest girl, Miroslava, because she decided to enter the film school. So she believed that she needs some kind of portfolio, and she decided to make this short film together with her family. And that was a very cool chance for us at the film crew, because we also got a chance to follow them, to observe them during that process. So when they were shooting their film, they decided to make interviews. And that was a very special day for everyone, for them and us, because when they put the camera, when they started to ask each other very intimate questions, that was probably the first time when they started to talk sincerely to each other. And I remember I was observing the face of the mother when she was listening to the answers of her children. And that was a very painful moment for us, for her, first of all, because that was the first time when they talked so frankly, so sincerely about all their traumas, but at the same time, that was their way to finally take these masks off. So I believe that telling stories help us because, first of all, when we are telling our stories to the other people and when we share our special experiences with them, we are not only the victims of the war, we are not only the victims of this trauma, we somehow deal with that. And also when they were shooting their short film and they decided to reconstruct some moments from the past, from this first year of war, you know, all these reconstruction moments, there is also some kind of working with trauma. We know that some psychotherapists, they use these methods when you should repeat some traumatic experiences from the past, but you have a chance to change the perspective because now you see the situation with some other angle, some other eyes. So I believe that art helps all of us to change the perspective, to see ourselves with some new, fresh eyes, and also to introduce ourselves to the other people in the world, because this is also crucial. We often feel that other people from these distant parallel realities, they don't really understand us. And I believe that films, books, and other pieces of art, it really helped to make some bridges between us. Sorry, I don't know, maybe I'm talking confusing, but I hope did it make sense? Yeah?
Iryna, absolutely. Thank you for such a detailed answer. And I would like to continue this topic. But first of all, I would like to ask our dear audience whether anybody wants to contribute and ask the question. You are free to do that, please.
Yes, please. I like questions. But I should confess, I feel a bit like zombie today because I had sleepless nights. So that is why my talking is a bit, but I hope that I will find the proper words for you. So
Iryna,
please
you
ask.
are welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Iryna, for this film because I had a chance to see it in Lisbon 2-3 days ago. And I also saw your address to the viewers in the public, and I heard a lot about that. I had heard a lot of very good things about your film before that, and I was happy that it confirmed all those high expectations. So thank you so much. It's one of the most touching films about the war I've seen. So, and it's really important, I think, for everyone, also not only for Ukrainians, for Ukrainian community, but also for the international community to see as many films like this as possible. And my question concerns actually this. I think it's a great device that you employed in this film, because it's not only a film about the war experience, but not only about the everyday experience during the war, but also a film about the filming. So you did it very well at the end of the of your film, that you didn't show the movie that the family was filming practically. And I would like to know more about the destiny, about what's happening with this film. Is it available? Because you showed really brilliantly only the affect on the faces of the people watching it, their tears, their smiles. It works marvelously, and it kind of what Olga Brychoveckaia said about its kind of present absence in a way. So this second film, and you also mentioned in your address that the mother, who is now apparently living in Poland, yes, as if I remember correctly, and with the family, yes, that she said that since her house is probably not existent anymore, and just yesterday I saw the news, and I saw that there were again new explosions in Krasnohorivka, and so that this film is probably the only place which feels like home for her now, and I found this really touching, and I just wanted also to ask you about this more. Maybe you can tell that to those who wasn't present at that screening. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words, and I'm really glad that you like the film, because you know, I feel that I did this film in some other life, because I've shot it in 2018. I finished it in 19, and it seems that it was it was some kind of another life now, because so many things have changed since then. And I will answer. Sorry, can you? I'm losing the contact with reality. Can you remind me what was the first
It
part?
was about what's happening with this film in the film.
Yes. So sorry. So you will help me sometimes. So first of all, I didn't use the film in my film because I didn't have the right for this. I believe that wasn't actually, how to say, ethic. I mean, this is something beyond the ethic, because that is their film, and they did it for their own screenings and meetings with their viewers. And I was just the observer who was trying to catch the process. But of course, I didn't have any rights to use their film inside of mine. And actually, I believe that this ending, when we see just the reactions on the faces, is even stronger, because I'm talking about the role of art. And how, as for me, these faces, they have everything. And it reminds us how cinema helps us to survive, how cinema works as some kind of mirrors for us today. Because, you know, I remember this screening, it was so emotional, because they introduced this short film for the most important audience, for the inhabitants of Krasnohorivka. So all these people, they know exactly what is this film about, because they are also, I mean, the part of this life. And later I had so many different screenings, so many different experiences to compare, but I believe that that screening was one of the most impressive. And talking about the destiny of this short film, Miroslava, the eldest girl, that was actually funny, because when she came with us for the premiere of our film at Sundance, she was so impressed by the atmosphere of this big, one of the most important festivals. Actually, we were also really impressed. And then when we came back home, she told me, I realized that my film is not good enough. Maybe I need to change it. Maybe I need to change the editing. And since I was already free, I mean, I finished my film, I told her, I won't help you, but if you would like, I can propose you the help of my editor. So she used this proposal, and together with my editor, Ivan Bannikov, they somehow changed the editing of her short film, and then she applied this film to different student and short film festivals, and she even got some audience award at one of the festivals. So the film has its own life, and as far as I know, it is still not available, but Miroslava is always happy to share the link, so I can ask her and I can share it with you.
It would
And
be,
this,
it would be lovely. Yes, and the second question was about what's happening now with your characters, with your with this family.
yeah, I will tell a little bit more about what happened with them, because you know, in the very first days of Russia's invasion, it was so weird, but at the same time so cool that the whole family was actually in Kiev, because few days before 24th of February, we invited them to Kiev because we had to go all together to our Lithuanian premiere. And also we felt such a huge anxiety. I mean, all of us, all Ukrainians. So we felt that something terrible is actually coming, but no one knew what exactly. But they decided that, okay, we should go to Kiev and then to the premiere. But Anna was smart because she took most important documents with her and some important things. And then they came to Kiev. They were enjoying it, the peaceful atmosphere, calm, big parks, and all these streets full of light, etc., etc. And then 24th of February started. So I remember my feelings because, you know, on the one hand, I was responsible for my kid and my family. I also had to decide what should I do with my life. And at the same time, I was responsible for the big family, which is in my city. And I was so glad that they are in Kiev, but I had to help them somehow. So we built some kind of a chain all together with Ukrainian and Lithuanian colleagues. So we helped them to flee to Vilnius, and then our Lithuanian colleagues helped them to actually stay there, and they are still they still live in Vilnius, and children adapted so fast, and they love Lithuania, and they would love even to stay. But Hannah, she misses her home so much, and every time we talk, she tells me that she really wants to come back home. But as far as we know, her house is partially destroyed, so they don't have a place to come back for sure, not now. So we'll see what will happen next. And also, maybe it will be interesting for you. I can share that some news about the family, because Miroslava, she graduated already from the film school, so she has a diploma of cinematographer, and from time to time she has some jobs. First she had them in Ukraine, now in Lithuania. Anastasia, she graduated from school, and she's going to actually enter the film school and to become the film director. That is her dream. Boys are doing well. And also Rana, she became the mother for the 5th time. So now they have another small girl. Her name is Yasa, and she's incredible, nice little girl, and everyone adores her. And Hannah's mother, unfortunately, she passed away because of COVID. That was before the invasion. And they fled all together. I mean, not only Hannah's family, but also her sister and her nephew and all the cats. And what else? They started to talk Ukrainian. That was such a big surprise for me, because when I met these people in 2017, 18, Ukrainian language was completely exotic for them, especially for Hannah. She couldn't actually speak Ukrainian, and now that is her choice. She speaks only Ukrainian with me, with other people when she's somewhere at how to say, when she speaks publicly, and Miroslava, she changed her language of speaking completely. So now she's Ukrainian speaking person. This is something very interesting for me because it also says something about metamorphosis of Ukrainian people in the last few years. And it also means that many things have changed since the moment when I've shot this film.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Are there any other questions to Iryna? If you don't mind, may I please ask you the second question? You mentioned that documentary films are very powerful in transforming collective worldview and personal outlook too. It's interesting how you perceive this public discussion of whether particular fiction films are appropriate in Ukrainian society. There was a question during our conference, actually, when we discussed the film that is not released yet, but the film that is already filmed, as far as I know, the fiction film Bucha. That was filmed almost after the liberation of the Kiev region, and it was made not by a Ukrainian filmmaker, however, in the territory that was directly involved in this war experience. It was traumatized greatly because I may say to those who don't know that Bucha is located in Kiev region. It was occupied in 2022, where more than 500 people were tortured and murdered. So for sure, we may admit that this experience was extremely traumatizing for those who live in Kiev region and in particular in Bucha. How do you approach to this discussion? Do you think that during the wartime it is more appropriate to create documentary films that may be not only an evidence of war crimes or the life of people during their occupation, or in general the life during the war of Ukrainian people, but also these documentaries may be very artistic and aesthetic and so on. So in many dimensions. Do you think such fiction films are to be shooted by Ukrainian directors now, or in general, what is your attitude towards this question? Thank you.
First of all, I need to say that I believe there is no black and white answers for those questions. And over the years of Russia's war in Ukraine, I mean, for 9.5 years, all of us, Ukrainian artists, filmmakers, writers, etc., we are all trying to find the proper forms, how to reflect on everything which is happening to us and Ukrainian society today. And there are so many different ways, genres, tools, and of course, some of them are wrong, some of them are right. Okay, maybe right is not the right word, but I believe some of them look much more truthful and talented and sincere, I don't know. And I also believe that some of the tools work better. For example, talking about literature, I see that poetry catches all those emotions and some very fast metamorphosis of people. It catches them so perfectly sometimes. And for example, novels, they need time, they need distance. And it is something very similar about the cinema for me. For example, documentary filmmaking. looks often much more appropriate to fix the reality, to stop the moment of here and now. And it's very crucial and important to actually fix it, because we change so fast and everything changes. And sometimes we just need to grab our cameras and, you know, to shoot everything around us, to stop those moments and crimes and people and their stories. And at the same time, fiction films, like, they are like novels. They probably need more distance, more time, more money. This is also important. And of course, some fiction films work perfectly also during the war times. But I believe that films which talk about really traumatic experiences, the authors, they need to be very careful with these topics and with actually the tools that they use. I also have very mixed feelings about this project Bucha and the projects like this one, because as to my opinion, it's too early. And these authors, they decided not only to create the fiction story so fast, you know, like just right after this huge tragedy happened, but they also allowed themselves to come to the same locations, to use I can't really imagine, you know, the shooting process when inhabitants of Bucha, when they saw, for example, tanks with Z or Z, or something like that in their town, and all this reconstruction of those moments, those. So I don't want to be too judgy, you know, towards my colleagues, but I believe that we should remember about all those red lines. We should be very careful, and sometimes it's this is a minefield. We can do all these wrong steps so easily. So I try to ask myself, what should I do in all those situations? And I really, I feel really scared. I don't want to. It's even difficult to explain, but because again, every artist asks herself or himself, what should they do? But maybe this is also the important conversation for the society and for our bubble, because we need to talk about those situations, those moments, and we need to ask ourselves what is appropriate and what is not. So yes, my opinion, that wasn't appropriate. And also I need to say that I read the script of this film, and I don't really believe that. Okay, maybe this is too early. Let's watch it and then we will judge the result. But we should remember about the responsibility. Sorry, my ability to speak English.
I would like to absolutely agree with you, because I think that, yes, reenactment and replaying some events may be really a fruitful method in overcoming traumatizing experience, but at the same time we have to always think about whether the time is appropriate, whether the participants of this process are able to do that exactly at this particular moment, whether it fits the general cultural context or psychological conditions of those people who are involved in this reenactment. So I also think that this question is quite controversial.
But actually, in documentary films, there is also the same problem, because if we work with people who are deeply traumatized, we also should know how to work with them and how to avoid re-traumatization. I'm not sure about the word. I should confess, I'm afraid of some topics and some themes. For example, I remember one of the producers proposed me to work on the project about women who were captured, who were tortured, and I decided that I'm not ready, because I don't know how to work with those people, even with the help of psychologists. But I was trying to ask myself, am I ready? And I wasn't ready. But at the same time, we should talk about those very special topics and terms, but we should find the proper ways. So yes, this is quite a big conversation. How should we work today in both documentary and fiction and animation films and all the other arts?
Thank you. I would like to still encourage all our listeners to participate. If you have questions to Iryna, I think it is a great opportunity to ask those questions now.
Sorry, I don't want to take too much attention. So you just interrupt me if you have.
No, come on.
So, yeah, no, yes, I always have questions. Yes, my question was it actually touches upon what you just said about women and their position and their maybe bad sad histories during the war. And because I noticed that as in many, by the way, several war films from Ukraine, you focus, of course, you're a female filmmaker, obviously, but at the same time, it's like kind of 80% of the attention in your film is also devoted to women. Apparently it's connected with their personal situation. Yes, the father is absent and their boys are too small to be active participants. But nonetheless, how do you see that? How do you see this the image and the not only the images, but how important it is for you, woman at war, and for you as a female filmmaker, also as a woman. And since you mentioned this suggestion to you to make a movie on women victims of war aggressions, I also agree it's totally important to talk about it and to raise these problematics with rape and any kind of violence. And I'm really happy to see how sensitive you are to this topic. And so I guess the general questions: women at war, how do you see that? And maybe you are aiming at in the future to work with these topics and themes. Thank you.
Well, I'm interested in women, also men, in charismatic, strong people. But it so happens often that I'm surrounded by so strong, brave, cool women that I'd like to tell stories about them and to share them with the world. For example, my first experience of making documentary films was Invisible Battalion project. Maybe I'm not sure, have you seen it or not? But that was a very actually cool project. It happened to me in 2017. I was invited by Maria Berlinska. She's quite famous activist and also volunteer. And at the moment, she's one of the best in air reconnaissance area in Ukraine. So she actually started the project Invisible Battalion first at the as a I forgot this word in English, дослідження, research. That was a research about the role of women in the Ukrainian army. And then she found some budget for the film, and she invited 3 female filmmakers to make 6 different short films. That was the almanac about women who defend Ukraine. So I chose 2 stories. One of them was about Tyra. She's quite a famous paramedic, and you probably know her because last year she was captured by Russians and she spent 3 months in the captivity, but luckily then she was liberated and she's still strong, and I'm very glad that she's free now. And another story was about Iryna Tsilyk. She's also quite a special personality because this girl, this woman, she joined the Ukrainian army in 2014 voluntarily, and she was the stormtrooper, the attack fighter. I'm not sure about the right word, but she was involved into the unit who was actually liberating different Ukrainian cities. So she did one of the most dangerous jobs, but at the same time, her story was the bright example of how the rights of women were violated in the armed forces of Ukraine, because she was officially listed as a sewer. And so this story was really bright example of what is really happening in the army, because many positions were not available for women. And we did this project, and I'm kind of proud about it, because in fact that is the example when documentary films also fight for rights of the people, because thanks to this project and some buzz around it, the situation changed, and the list of the positions available for women in the armed forces of Ukraine was actually expanded. So that was kind of a victory for all of us. And also this film gave us the opportunity to present it in some very important audiences. For example, we had a tour to Canada and USA, and I remember these meetings with the Ministry of Defense of Canada, and we were showing the film in the Parliament of Canada. So, you know, it gave us some tools for this cultural diplomacy as well, and for all those conversations between, for example, female soldiers from Ukraine and Canada and the US. So this experience was quite impressive and important for me. And then The Earth is Blue is in Orange, that was also my attempt to understand what does it mean to be a mother, single mother of so many children. And despite all the circumstances of war, this woman, she actually managed not only to survive with her family, but to live fully. So that was so inspiring example for me. And also, you know, I talked previously that I avoided the term of women who were captured and tortured. And then I realized that that is actually not true, because I worked on the other project, and that was the fiction film Butterfly Vision by Maxim Nakoniechny. And that is a very interesting story behind the project, because it actually started when Max watched my film about Iryna, this stormtrooper. And there was a moment in my documentary film when she was telling that she was so afraid of possible captivity that she asked her comrades to kill her in case of those situations if she could be captured. And Max, he was so impressed, you know, by this idea. And then he thought, and if not, what is happening to women if they are actually captured? So he started this project and he invited me as the co-author of the script. And that was the important journey for both of us because this theme is so hard and so, and also again we just talked about fiction films in the war times. Okay, this film it was also done recently. I mean, it was shot in 2019, but I believe this film is quite important today because it also raises all these questions. And so a lot depends again on the author's perspective, on the ethics which authors use, because Max, he did as to my opinion, he did a very good film and he talks very carefully about all these traumatic things, but at the same time he proposes us, I mean the society and also people from another countries to think about what is actually happening. And when we are talking about all these important things today, we also help to get the attention, you know, to all these cases, because we have so many captives still. So we need to somehow catch the attention of the world. So it depends. Again, I mean, fiction and documentary, and it depends. But talking about women, of course, I'm interested in all those stories. I'm the woman, I'm the mother, I'm the wife of a soldier, and I feel very connected to many women with similar experiences. And sometimes I feel that some of them, they are voiceless because of different reasons. And maybe this is also our task, to give them a chance to be visible to the other people. And at the moment, by the way, I'm developing the new project, which is also very much focused on the theme of women's experience at the wartime. But this film is actually about myself, and this is a very scary, how to say, path to walk on, because it's not that easy, you know, to talk sincerely about your own intimate experience. But I decided that maybe this is a time to talk about myself, my family, my friends, and all those invisible scars that we have now because of war. So this is, I don't know, this is the challenging experience, but I decided that I will be brave and I would love to talk about my intimate experience. But what is interesting, I decided to use the tool of animation because it's going to be animated documentary. This genre also is very interesting and exciting for me. I don't know, have you seen some of those bright examples of this genre, like Vals with Bashir or Flea or others? This is such a cool way, actually, to talk about our, I don't know, traumas also, but to somehow hide behind the masks of animated characters.
Thank you. I think that we have time for the last question. Does anybody want to pose it?
You see, I even talked about my plans for the future, because usually people ask, what are you working on? And oh, Alexandra is raising her hand.
You know me. No, I just, it's so cool because it's really interesting. I had sort of prepared a question, which was exactly the question that Maria ended up asking, her second question about like how we make art and film in times of war and what is appropriate and what isn't. And I really agree with everything that's been said, but then I wanted to ask, but what about the artists themselves? Because we've talked about how telling stories helps us and art helps us. And I think if you are a filmmaker or a writer, perhaps the most natural way for you to deal with something like a horrible tragedy of the war is to maybe also make art about it. And I wanted to ask like what you would consider to be an appropriate way for an artist to process something. And then you talked about making an animated documentary, which I think is just phenomenal. I think it's I've heard you mention it, but I do not know this genre. So maybe you can just say a few more words, if you like, about why you think this is a good tool and why you find it exciting.
You know, first I would love to add something about our ability to actually reflect, because last year I felt very numb and speechless, and also I was looking around and I saw that many of my colleagues, filmmakers and writers, it seemed that we somehow lost the ability to write, to shoot, to talk, because we lost the understanding how can we explain, how can we reflect on everything what is happening to us. And I guess this is because we actually found ourselves in the epicenter of all these traumatic events, and it's really impossible to reflect on something when you couldn't be above the situation. Again, you need some distance. And I also want to share some very important lesson that I had last year. I always now share about this experience because I believe this is important. When I've been shooting The Earth is Blue and Orange, I had a huge empathy to my characters, but still I was just the observer, because I've been coming so many times to their town, to their house, and I was also the part of everything. But then I've been coming back to my completely peaceful Kiev. So that was something different, you know? And on the second day of Russia's invasion into Ukraine, into Kiev also, I had a very special situation because that was a huge shelling right behind my window. I mean, it was really close to my house, to my building in Kiev. And when I saw my child, who was very scared and who was actually shaken with fear, like animal fear, I immediately lost all the roles of the, I don't know, the artist, the filmmaker, the observer. I was just the mother who doesn't know how to protect her own child. And this experience was actually so important for me, because that was a moment when I finally understood Hannah and what she actually felt in the first years of war, and not only first years, but also the other years, because they had so many shellings in their city. So I don't mean that we need to put on the shoes of other people and their traumatic experiences, but sometimes it really helps us to have another perspective. And talking about animation, why did I decide to use it in my new project? First of all, I really love animated documentaries. This is such a cool genre for me, because sometimes when you talk about something that already happened, or something that you don't have a chance to shoot because of different reasons, you can use different various tools. For example, you can make some fiction reconstructions, or you can shoot something which is somehow relates to the theme of your film, or you can draw it, and it gives you such a big artistic freedom, especially in my case, because I am the poet as well, and I have quite a poetic view. And I realized that I have freedom to combine all those dimensions of reality and dreams and nightmares and flashbacks, and it gives me, I don't know, so many I even don't know how to explain, but I believe that this is such a cool marriage of animation and poetry. And at the same time, I still can talk about something very real, something that happened to me, to people I know. And I want to use it. Maybe I'm not so brave, because I will also hide behind the animated character, but at the same time, it gives you this chance to talk about something really intimate. I don't know, for example, the relationship with your husband, or something that happens in a bedroom. I can't shoot it, come on, but I can draw it, and I can talk about something that all women know, and not only women and men. So we'll see. I hope it will work out, and I will be happy to share this attempt with you. Unfortunately, it will take time, because animation means years and huge budget, but I believe we will survive and we will make the film. And by the way, its title, its working title at the moment is Red Zone. And I like the title because it's not only about, the zone where hostilities take place, but it's also about the space of insecurity. And it's unfortunately everywhere in Ukraine now. The whole Ukraine is red zone. And I'd like to talk about this red zone.
Talking about titles of your films, I know that Iryna has a question to you.
Why did I decide to use
Well,
the
I have
quote?
my own ideas. Yes, I have my own ideas, but as a scholar, we don't need to ask the director's opinion. But nonetheless, since you're here, we have this wonderful opportunity to talk to you. Yes, I would like to know about the title, because it wasn't obvious from the film itself. Thank you.
I remember how it came to me. Actually, Ukrainian literary critic, her name is Hanna Ulura. I remember we had the conversation, and I told her that I can't find the right title for my film. And I was trying to explain it should be something about meetings or crossroads of parallel dimension, of some things that don't actually combine. And then she found this quote from Paul Éluard, because this is such a, I don't know, such a famous example of surrealism in poetry. And I loved it. And of course, it's not connected with the film, but it's something about all those incompatible things. because when you come to the frontline zone with your fresh eyes, you see actually so many of those weird crossroads of war and peace. I remember I had fresh eyes in my past, in this previous life, and I was impressed by all those moments again and again. For example, talking about our film, one of the bright examples, I love this shot where these two girls in beautiful dresses after the school prom, they take selfies in front of their ruined school, and you see military trucks behind them, and they don't even react. But I mean, everything is so close to each other. The war and peace, this youth and joy, and at the same time, all these painful things. So yeah, I was trying to find something poetic and something to explain. Okay, many people probably didn't understand why, but I believe that this title did a good job for the film.
It's a great title. I totally agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to ask again whether anybody wants to share your reflections on our talks today, maybe your impressions of Iryna's films, or you may want to ask a question. Then I guess we may move to the end of this meeting. I'm very glad that we have had it. I'm very thankful to this opportunity, and I would like to wish you, Iryna, courage to accomplish all your projects. For sure, a lot of inspiration, opportunities, and I hope so much that there will be other chances for us to meet and discuss your new films, and the war will not be the background of our talks.
Thank you. And please say hello to Lisbon, because I liked it so much last year. That was my first and only, and the last for the moment, time when I seen sorry. I'm already losing my ability to speak. Yes, but I loved your city, and it was full of life and colors and smells. I remember I came there with Sofia Andruchovich, and we had so cool moments. So please say hi to this beautiful and joyful city. And I hope next time I will come with some new film and we will talk in person after the screening.
That would be lovely.